Welcome back everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most astonishing, unbelievable, and absolutely captivating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that blends mystery, history, minting errors, unexpected discoveries, and jaw-dropping values into a single whirlwind narrative. And today's focus is on the astounding 1985 quarter-dollar coin that has become the center of attention in the collector community because some examples of this coin have been rumored, discussed, debated, and celebrated for being worth up to $47 million due to a combination of extremely rare errors, unusual striking anomalies, oddities in composition, and the kind of minting mistakes that elevate an ordinary 25-cent piece into an object of fascination and treasure-hunting excitement. And as we welcome all of you who love coins, history, numismatic mysteries, and the thrill of imagining that a simple coin could turn into a life-changing fortune, we take you deep into the story of how this unassuming 1985 quarter became a legend and why collectors whisper about that fabled $47 million value. So sit back and enjoy this long exploration into what makes certain coins incredibly valuable, why errors matter so much, and how the tiniest imperfections can transform something common into something truly extraordinary as we travel through every detail and possibility surrounding the 1985 quarter, beginning with the year itself. 1985, a year in which the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, most of which rolled off the presses with perfect standard specifications, the iconic bust of George Washington on the obverse, the eagle on the reverse, the expected clad composition of copper-nickel bonded to copper, the standard reeded edges, and the normal weight and diameter. Yet hidden among these countless ordinary coins were a very tiny number of pieces that came out unlike anything the Mint intended. Pieces that would later stun collectors when experts realized that their oddities were not random damage from circulation but were in fact genuine mistakes from the minting process, mistakes that could only occur under rare conditions. And as these discoveries accumulated over the decades, the legend of the 1985 quarter grew, causing some collectors to speculate that the rarest example, featuring multiple overlapping errors, might one day command a mind-blowing value of up to $47 million. And to understand why anyone could even imagine such a number, we must explore each possible error, each anomaly, and each minting mishap that could push a coin from being simply rare to being astronomically valuable, starting with the possibility of off-metal strikes, one of the most dramatic errors a coin can have, which occurs when the coin is mistakenly struck on a planchet meant for a completely different denomination, and while quarters are supposed to be struck on copper-nickel-clad quarter planchets, there have been occasional documented cases of quarters accidentally struck on dime planchets, on cent planchets, or even on foreign coin blanks that were in the mint's machinery at the same time, creating lightweight, oddly colored, strangely sized quarters that instantly stand out to experts. And if a 1985 quarter were struck on a rare foreign gold alloy planchet or a leftover experimental blank, that alone could make its value soar into the millions. But error collectors also look for double strikes and triple strikes, where the die hits the coin more than once in misaligned ways, causing ghost-like images, overlapping profiles of Washington, incomplete or distorted designs, and bizarre patterns on the reverse where the eagle appears shifted, stretched, or duplicated. And the more dramatic the doubling, the more desirable the coin becomes, especially if the errors are crisp, bold, and unmistakable instead of being faint or caused by machine vibration. And another factor that could contribute to the extreme value of a 1985 quarter is a rare die clash error, where the obverse and reverse dies accidentally hit each other without a planchet between them, imprinting faint outlines of Washington's profile onto the reverse die or faint wings of the eagle onto the obverse die. And when these clash dies are later used to strike actual coins, the resulting pieces show ghost-like shapes of the opposite design peeking through, something that collectors absolutely love because it proves a genuine minting accident. But what really fascinates experts about the rumored $47,001,985 quarter is the claim that some examples supposedly combine multiple major errors at once, such as an off-metal strike combined with a dramatic double strike, paired with a misaligned die, and topped with a die crack that runs across the coin in a lightning bolt shape. And if such a coin exists, especially if preserved in pristine mint state condition, it could indeed be one of the most spectacular error coins in existence, unique in the world. And uniqueness is what drives ultra-high value auctions, because in numismatics, rarity is king, and nothing is rarer than a one-of-one error coin that cannot be reproduced. And this is not the only possibility, because some experts speculate that certain 1985 quarters might also show evidence of a broad strike error, where the coin is struck without the collar that normally shapes its edge, producing a wider, smoother, oddly formed quarter that looks stretched or melted around the edges. And when combined with off-center strikes, This error can create breathtaking visuals of partial designs, where Washington's bust appears drifting ominously toward the rim and parts of the lettering Liberty or I in God We Trust vanish into empty space. And then, of course, there is the always fascinating possibility of a wrong-weight planchet, where the coin weighs significantly more or less than a standard quarter due to a planchet intended for another coin slipping into the press unnoticed, and weight anomalies can sometimes suggest that the coin was struck on a silver planchet left over from an experiment, or even a foreign coin blank made from a mysterious alloy. Something that adds intrigue and excitement because collectors know that unusual composition errors can become some of the most valuable types of mint mistakes ever recorded, and while most 1985 p quarters weigh the standard 5.67 grams, a rare one weighing dramatically more or less, especially if authenticated by experts, could command an incredible price. But the story does not end here, because there are also rumors about a potential 1985 p quarter with a rotated die error, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned by 90 degrees or more, creating a surreal effect when you flip the coin and see that the eagle is not facing the direction it should, and rotated die errors can be minor or extreme, with the extreme examples being highly prized by collectors, and the more severe the rotation, the higher the potential value, especially for an already rare date like 1985 with multiple conflicting production issues, and if a rotated die coin also had doubling, off-metal composition, and flawless preservation, the numismatic world would be stunned by its existence, and the bidding wars at auction would likely skyrocket, especially since collectors fight fiercely for world record setting rarities that combine dramatic errors with top-tier condition. And speaking of condition, the preservation of a coin matters immensely when determining its value, because even the most dramatic mint error can lose appeal if the coin has heavy circulation wear, scratches, corrosion, stains or dents. But if a legendary 1985 p quarter error coin survived decades untouched, kept in a drawer, collection, or sealed roll, then its surfaces could remain crisp, lustrous, and sharply detailed, allowing the full impact of the errors to shine through. And this mint state preservation is one of the key reasons why ultra-rare coins sell for tens of millions at premier auctions, because collectors want perfection paired with rarity, and perfection combined with an impossible-to-duplicate minting anomaly becomes a recipe for astronomical value, fueling the speculation that a $47 million example might indeed exist somewhere, perhaps still undiscovered, perhaps lying in a forgotten coin jar in someone's home, or tucked away in a roll of quarters that has not been opened since the 1980s, and the possibility that an ordinary person might stumble upon such a treasure adds to the excitement and intrigue surrounding the 1985 p quarter, making it the subject of countless YouTube videos, forum discussions, numismatic investigations, and treasure hunting fantasies, because the idea that a simple quarter could change your life is irresistible, and the more we study the minting practices of the 1980s, the more we realize that the Philadelphia Mint was dealing with intense production pressures, high-speed machinery, massive quantities of circulating coins, and frequent equipment maintenance cycles, all of which created opportunities for mistakes, oversights, die misalignments, planchet mix-ups, press malfunctions, and quality control lapses. And these conditions are precisely what create the rarest and most desirable error coins. And when you combine the hectic atmosphere of the mint with the sheer number of coins being produced, you can imagine how a few anomalies could slip through undetected. Next. Today, as we dive into one of the most surprising and mind-blowing stories in modern coin collecting, a story that begins with a simple 1987 p Washington quarter, a coin most people would pass over without even looking twice, yet in the strange and fascinating world of mint errors, rarity, and collector speculation, this ordinary piece of pocket change has been rumored to reach an unbelievable value of $34 million, and in today's deep exploration we're going to unravel how a coin like this could ever become so valuable, what kinds of mistakes or mint errors could push it into that astronomical price bracket, what possibilities exist in the mysterious and sometimes misunderstood realm of coin anomalies, and why the 1987 p quarter has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike. Because while it may seem impossible that a coin minted in huge quantities could be worth life-changing money, the world of numismatics has repeatedly shown that rarity often hides in plain sight, that accidental mistakes during production can transform a simple coin into an artifact of incredible worth, and that stories of these rare discoveries keep fueling the excitement of collectors searching for the next big find. And so as we begin our long journey into the depths of speculation, mystery, history, and error analysis, let's imagine the origins of the 1987 p quarter, a year that came at a time when the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at a Rapid pace to meet national demand, striking millions of quarters with the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse, a design that had already been in circulation for decades, and while most 1987 P quarters left the mint looking perfectly ordinary, the rare and elusive pieces that collectors obsess over today are the ones that contain anomalies so subtle or so dramatic that they completely change the destiny of the coin, elevating its potential value into levels the average person could never imagine. So let's break down how such extraordinary value can be attached to a coin from this year, starting with the wide range of known mint errors that can appear on any coin, because errors come in many forms, such as die doubling, off-center striking, die cracks, clip planchets, broad strikes, wrong metal planchets, transitional errors, missing mint marks, strike-through debris marks, and many more, and the possibility of any of these happening on the 1987 P quarter is what triggers the entire conversation about multi-million-dollar value, since the right error in the right condition can turn a simple quarter into a treasure, and collectors know that even if they search thousands of coins they might never find one, so the few that do surface become almost mythical in the numismatic world, especially if their errors are dramatic enough to affect the coin visually in a unique way, and among the most desirable possibilities are doubled dies, which occur when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between strikes during the hubbing process, causing the design elements to appear doubled, and on a coin like the 1987 P quarter the doubling could manifest on letters of the motto, numbers in the date, or even on the eagle's feathers, creating an instantly recognizable rarity that collectors would battle for, bidding up the price to astonishing heights, because a doubled die that is crisp, dramatic, and easily visible without magnification becomes one of the most desirable types of mint errors in existence, and the idea that a 1987 P quarter could have such a version fuels endless fascination. But doubled dies are only one small part of what could make this coin worth $34 million, and to understand the full picture we need to go even further into the catalog of potential mint mistakes that could push its value higher, such as the possibility of an off-metal strike, where the coin is mistakenly struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, like a nickel or even a foreign coin blank, and these mistakes are extraordinarily rare because planchet mixing is not common, but history has shown that they do happen, and when they do the coin instantly becomes one of the rarest pieces from that entire year. And for 1987 such an event would create intense interest from collectors who specialize in wrong planchet errors, perhaps leading to dramatic auction results, and imagine a scenario where a 1987 P quarter was accidentally struck on a copper planchet or a steel planchet or even a leftover planchet from another year or denomination. Such an error would immediately set it apart and make it the only known example, and rarity like that is often what produces multi-million-dollar valuations. But the story does not end there, because another incredibly valuable category is the off-center strike, where the coin is struck so far off-center that part of the design is missing entirely. And collectors especially love dramatic off-center errors where maybe 50% of the coin is blank yet the date remains visible, because if the date is still readable the coin is incredibly desirable, allowing collectors to place it clearly within its production timeline. And this combination of off-center striking plus date visibility is one of the most famous formulas for creating a high-value error coin. So imagine a wildly off-center 1987 P quarter with a large portion of the blank planchet exposed, yet with the date clearly intact, and you can see how such a coin could capture the attention of serious collectors willing to pay a fortune to own it. But beyond these types of errors, the quarter could also contain die cracks, which occur when the dies begin to fracture, leaving raised lines or patterns on the finished coin. And while die cracks alone often do not make a coin extremely valuable, certain dramatic cracks that run across the entire design or create unusual shapes like retained cut breaks can create a one-of-a-kind coin that collectors find irresistible, especially if the crack affects the portrait of Washington or the eagle in a visually striking way. And then we must consider the possibility of a broad strike error, where the collar fails during striking and the metal expands outward, creating a coin with no defined rim and an unusual, stretched appearance. And while these errors are not always extremely valuable, a perfectly preserved broad strike from 1987 with full detail and no damage could still become a standout collector piece, especially in the unlikely case of a dramatic expansion. And there's always the fascinating category of strike-through errors, where some kind of debris, grease, cloth, wire, or even a fragment of metal gets caught between the die and the planchet during the striking process, embedding into the coin's surface or leaving an impression that looks bizarre, confusing, or unique. And when the strike-through pattern forms a shape that is instantly recognizable or deeply unusual, collectors can go absolutely wild over it, and a particularly dramatic strike-through on a 1987 P quarter could generate enormous interest, pushing its theoretical value into unimaginable levels. And then there's the rare possibility of a missing mint mark scenario, even though the 1987 P quarter should always have a P mint mark, and if somehow a coin was struck using a leftover die missing the mint mark entirely, perhaps due to a transition die from another year or a preparation oversight, then the coin could instantly become one of the only known no mint mark quarters of its year, drastically increasing its collectible value. And beyond physical mint errors, we must also consider theoretical numismatic circumstances that could elevate value, such as the discovery of a prototype design, an experimental metal composition planchet, or a secret test strike that was never intended to be released into circulation but somehow escaped the mint and found its way into the hands of a collector, because history has shown that occasionally test strikes or pattern coins do slip out, and when they surface decades later they are valued at millions because they are considered national numismatic treasures. And while no confirmed 1987 prototype quarter is known, the possibility of such a coin existing is what drives speculation, and speculation drives excitement, and excitement drives value. And since the world of coin collecting often thrives on mystery and the hope of discovering the next previously unknown rarity, the legend of the multimillion-dollar 1987 P quarter continues to grow, fueled by discussions, rumors, and stories of supposed discoveries, because the moment a coin becomes the subject of conversation, its presence in the collective imagination gives it symbolic value beyond its metal content or original purpose, creating a narrative that only increases its desirability. And if one single 1987 P quarter were ever authenticated with a combination of dramatic error types, pristine preservation, and historical significance, the bidding wars that would erupt among collectors, investors, museums, and wealthy enthusiasts could indeed push the price into the tens of millions, especially in a high-profile auction where rarity naturally turns into spectacle. And the more dramatic the backstory, the higher the demand climbs. And speaking of drama, condition also matters enormously, because an error coin that is preserved in pristine mint state can be exponentially more valuable than the same error coin that has circulated heavily and shows wear, meaning that a theoretical perfect grade error 1987 P quarter with a dramatic mistake could be valued far more than any worn example, and perfection is rare, which is why collectors obsess over it. Last. Today, as we dive into one of the most astonishing and intriguing discoveries in the world of rare coins, a story that blends mystery, error-driven value, and the unexpected rise of an everyday object into the realm of multimillion-dollar treasures. And today we are exploring the fascinating tale of the 1985 D quarter dollar coin that has stunned collectors worldwide with a rumored value reaching as high as $12 million, a figure so unbelievable that it immediately captures the imagination and pulls us deeper into the realm of possibilities behind how a coin that once circulated in the pockets, purses, and cash registers of ordinary Americans could become an object of tremendous monetary and historical fascination. And as we journey through this story, we are going to unravel the known errors, the hypothetical minting mistakes, the production anomalies, the environmental oddities, the rare combinations of circumstances, and the numismatic whispers that have elevated this one unexpected 1985 D quarter into an icon of rarity, value, and intrigue. And the deeper we go, the more we see how tiny mechanical slips at the Denver Mint, combined with the intense interest of collectors and the unpredictable nature of coin circulation, have turned what should have been a routine piece of currency into something bordering on legendary. And while millions upon millions of 1985 D quarters were struck and released into the economy without any special intention, only the rarest of these possess the layered stack of abnormalities that collectors dream about, abnormalities that include dramatic minting errors, subtle metallic inconsistencies, unique die flaws, doubled or tripled impressions, planchet anomalies, rotated dies, missing details, overstruck elements, misaligned devices, clipped planchets, off-center strikes, and various unusual surface textures, each one of these offering a potential pathway to staggering value. And so today we bring the entire saga into a single flowing narrative designed to pull you in, keep you engaged, and leave you with a much deeper appreciation for how extraordinary a single coin can become when mechanical mishaps collide with numismatic fascination. And to understand the exceptional nature of such a coin, we must begin by recognizing how the minting process itself is designed to be as consistent as humanly and mechanically possible, with massive presses, heavy steel dies, specially prepared planchets, and carefully monitored procedures meant to ensure the production of coins that appear identical in every detail. But the reality is that any industrial process, especially one dealing with billions of high-speed strikes per year, can and does experience deviations, and sometimes those deviations can be dramatic, creating coins that are not only different from the intended design but singular in their characteristics. And when those coins escape quality control and enter the general circulation unnoticed, they essentially become tiny historical anomalies traveling hand to hand until one day someone with a sharp eye, maybe a collector, maybe a lucky individual, recognizes that something about the coin is fundamentally different, and the 1985 D-quarter in question is believed to have such a remarkable blend of deviations that its very existence pushes the limits of what collectors previously believed possible, prompting some to speculate on how an array of minting errors could converge in a single specimen. And while the Denver Mint is known for producing high-quality strikes, especially throughout the 1980s, this particular era also saw occasional planchet inconsistencies, mechanical fatigue, and increased circulation demands, all of which contributed to higher chances of mint errors slipping through. And the most sought-after errors for 1985 D-quarters include off-center strikes where the design lands significantly away from its intended position, creating visible crescents of blank metal, double die obverse or reverse impressions where letters, numbers, or imagery appear doubled or even tripled, broad-struck coins that expand outward because the protective collar did not fully surround the planchet during striking, clipped planchets where a portion of the coin is missing due to a misfeed during preparation, and die cracks or die breaks that appear as raised lines or unusual raised patches caused by fatigue in the die used to strike the coin. And although any one of these error types can add value, the rumored $12 million valuation suggests something far more complex and layered, something so extraordinary that it pushes the coin into an elite category where rarity is not just about a singular mistake but a combination of multiple errors happening at once, making the coin not only a minting mystery but a 1 in a billion anomaly. And collectors often speculate that such a coin could have originated from a double-struck off-center error combined with an unusually composed planchet, perhaps one containing a mixture of metals different from the official copper-nickel clad standard, forming a unique coloration, abnormal weight, or magnetic response that sets the coin apart even before the error patterns are examined. And if one imagines a scenario in which a misaligned die face created doubled lettering while a collar malfunction allowed the coin to expand outward and a planchet cutter misalignment caused a clipped edge, the value begins to make more sense through the lens of numismatic rarity. But beyond the mechanical steps, the romantic side of numismatics adds an even deeper layer, because the journey of such a coin through circulation before discovery is itself a story of chance, and people love the idea that the world's next multimillion-dollar rarity might be sitting in their pocket change, trapped in a forgotten jar, wedged between car seats, or hiding at the bottom of a drawer. And it is this mix of rarity, mystery, and possibility that keeps collectors fascinated with coins like this 1985 D-quarter, since a major reason for its rumored astronomical value lies not only in the errors themselves but in the understanding that collectors are willing to pay for a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own a coin with such an improbable origin. And the speculation only grows when considering the idea that certain mint errors from the mid-1980s have gone unnoticed for years before resurfacing in auctions or private sales, leading some experts to propose that a coin like this may have surfaced briefly in the private collecting world before disappearing again, perhaps due to estate transfers, private acquisitions, or non-disclosure agreements between elite collectors. And each of these possibilities only adds to the allure, as the coin becomes more myth than artifact, yet still rooted in the undeniable reality that mint errors exist. And extraordinary mint errors can indeed command extraordinary prices, and the Denver Mint's 1985 production year remains a period worth examining because its machinery was experiencing routine wear from producing billions of coins, and any wear or mechanical drift increases the likelihood of die cracks, misalignments, and doubled impressions due to instability in the stamping cycles. And in addition to mechanical variables, environmental and handling factors might alter the appearance of the coin after minting, and if those environmental changes interact with an already unique error coin, the results could produce highly unusual toning effects, such as rainbow hues, deep purples, golden rims, or mirror-like surfaces on parts of the coin where the metal reacted differently due to its altered composition or incomplete strike. And collectors place extremely high value on unusual toning when it occurs naturally, particularly when combined with known errors, and it adds yet another potential layer of exceptional appeal to a coin already brimming with mysteries. And of course, we must consider the possibility of a transitional planchet error, where a coin is accidentally minted on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different year. And while there is no confirmed record of transitional planchets for 1985 quarters, collectors know this type of error is real and has happened with other coins, so speculation remains alive. And it is possible that such an unbelievably valuable 1985 D quarter would need to possess a perfect storm of errors, including misstruck details, off-metal composition, die rotation, doubled elements, clipped edges, and unusual finish, each of these stacking together in ways not normally seen and therefore creating an object so rare and so unique that collectors see it as irreplaceable. And what truly drives the fascination is the idea that all of these conditions could theoretically align in one impossible moment at the Denver Mint, where perhaps a misfeat occurred at the same time a die was near the end of its life. At the same moment a press was undergoing maintenance calibration, using a planchet that had been incorrectly sorted from scrap or experimental batches, and the coin that resulted escaped quality control because in that instant someone simply did not notice anything unusual, allowing the coin to enter circulation and vanish into the massive world of everyday transactions, where it stayed hidden for years or decades until resurfacing under the gaze of someone who recognized its extraordinary nature. And once collectors get even a hint that such a coin exists, the excitement snowballs, because the numismatic community thrives on the thrill of discovery, the hope of rarity, and the idea that hidden treasures are still out there waiting to be found, and that is why stories of the $12 million 1985 D quarter spread quickly, fueling speculation, inspiring searches, and elevating the coin to legendary status. And while not every story can be verified,